smashed down the door down my sister-in-law's house and said, "Are you Michael O'Brien?" I said, "Yes." "We're arresting you for the murder of Phillip Saunders." And my gut instinct was, who the fuck was Phillip Saunders? I never heard of the guy before. I mean, I was scared out of my wits, and here I was, watching a police officer make up an incriminating note, and that's when I knew that I was going to get framed for murder. I did see the photographs of the injuries which he sustained, which is etched in my memory, if you like, because I was so shocked, and the police were saying, "This is what you did. This is what you did. You're going down for this." So you can imagine, I couldn't eat for 2 weeks. Once the wheels of motion start, I mean, you're found guilty even before you say a word. As soon as you're in that dock, the jury look at it, well, there's no smoke without fire. I had to face reality that these things were happening. I needed to study law. I needed to educate myself. I couldn't read or write when I was in prison very well. I had to do something. The next minute I'm writing to everybody, every journalist you can think of. I was protesting. I went on hunger strikes with other inmates. To this day, in most of the cases in the dossier, these people are still at large who've committed these offences.
Well, this is the question I want to ask you. Do you have any inkling of who the killer was, and are they still about?
Well, I bumped into him on the Cowbridge Road in Ely, and he said, "You can't prove nothing."
What's going on, people? Welcome to the Central Club. This episode is brought to you by Reinspire Printing and Neil McAvoy Law. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that bell button to subscribe to the club and be notified of future content. As you know, we're a voice for adversity, and one of the main objectives of this podcast is to eradicate stigma and change perceptions. Since the start, we've covered a few podcasts on the injustice system and the aftermath it has on people's lives. James Lee, tortured and imprisoned in Saudi Arabia and suspicion on terrorism. John Ackley and Tony Paris for the murder of Lynette White. It's shocking to see how many of these people live in the city of Cardiff who have been arrested for the crimes they did not commit. This is another case, the Cardiff Newsagents 3. In 1987, Phillip Saunders was murdered, leading to the arrest of 3 innocent men. One of the accused is sat next to me right now, and we're going to dive into his story. Who he was before the murder, what happened when he was arrested, and of course, the aftermath. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you, author and activist Michael O'Brien.
Thank you. Well, where do I start? It's very interesting, really, because I got so much to say. First of all, I was wrongly convicted in 1987. I want to go back to where it all began. I wasn't a master criminal or anything like that, but I was into stealing cars, and this is what we were doing on the night in question. I was allowing myself to be carried in stolen vehicles, but I wasn't Reggie Cray either, I think we got to, draw a distinction. There's a difference between allowing yourself to be carried in a stolen vehicle than committing murder. Now, me and my 2 co-accused, Ellis, Shearwood and Darren Hall, were out on the night in question trying to steal cars. The police were picking up everybody who had a criminal record. Now, unfortunately for me, my 2 co-accused did have criminal records, and there was like a dragnet system where they were pulling everybody in. And if you didn't have an alibi, you were seen as a suspect. Now, there was 42 suspects in our case altogether, including myself, Ellis, Shearwood and Darren Hall. Now, I can remember there was a knock on the door on the 1st of November, 1987, where the police smashed down the door down my sister-in-law's house and said, "Are you Michael O'Brien?" I said, "Yes." "We're arresting you for the murder of Phillip Saunders." And my gut instinct was, who the fuck was Phillip Saunders? I never heard of the guy before. So I was taken to Canton Police Station, where I was handcuffed to hot radiators for long periods of time. I was interviewed off the record, denied food and water whilst I was in the police station, and denied access to a lawyer. I've never seen anything like this. I was only 19 at the time, and I was absolutely terrified, So in the first interview I gave, I did lie about the car that we stole on the night in question, because I was more interested in what I did do rather than what I didn't do. But then it became, apparent that they weren't interested about the car. They wanted me for the murder. And they were playing good cop, bad cop. Coming into the interview going, well, you don't want Mr. Bad Guy to come in now and, give you a hard time. If you did do it, you better tell us now. Maybe it was just a robbery gone wrong and you were reluctantly dragged along. And I'm like, what have you been smoking? I was just astounded that he can even think like that. But after 3 days of questioning, they released us on bail, even though my co-accused, Darren Hall, confessed to killing Phillip Saunders on his own, as well as implicating other innocent people besides ourselves. So that's quite astonishing when you think about it, because
reiterate that again. Sorry.
They actually let us go after my co-accused confessed and implicated us in the murder of Phillip Saunders. So if they really believed that he was telling the truth, they wouldn't have let us go.
They let go Daryl as well.
Yeah, Darren as well. Yeah, I mean, we were arrested 7 days later on the 10th of November, 1987, saying they had significant new evidence. Now, the significant new evidence was that a number of police informants said they seen Ellis, Shearwood and myself in town spending money from the robbery, and we admitted it to them that we'd done the crime. But there's only one problem with that. On the night in question, and on the day in question, Ellis Shearwood was locked up in the police cells the night before. So how could he be seen in town spending money from the robbery when he was already locked up? But nevertheless, that was overlooked. I can remember us being put into the cells, and a police officer alleged a conversation took place, and it went something like this. They're going to charge me and you. I was supposed to have said this to Ellis Shearwood, and he was supposed to have replied, being on remand means nothing, and don't do that, we'll be fucked, and things like that. Basically, it was an incriminating conversation to say that we were involved in the crime. Now, we were taken out of the cells, and when this was put to us, that was the first time I was allowed a solicitor, in the police station the second time. And we were treated exactly the same as the first time in the police station, by being handcuffed to a table. I was verbally abused by police officers, saying people like you should get 20 years for what you've done to this man. I mean, I was scared out of my wits, and here I was watching a police officer make up an incriminating note, and that's when I knew that I was going to get framed for murder.
Did the solicitor you had the second time, did he look at any of this and be like, why didn't you call me the first time? Or, I know you said they didn't let you have a solicitor, but like, was there anything he could do to help, or was it like you kind of fucked you sort of thing?
Well, he should have put in a complaint in about the way we were being treated, and he didn't. I still don't know to this day why he never put a complaint in. It's not normal to be handcuffed to hot radiators, denied access to basic human rights, denial of food and water, being kept up all night. I mean, that is appalling. You hear about it in other countries, but you don't expect it to happen on your own doorstep. No. And that's exactly what happened. So our lawyers let us down.
Do you think, looking back now, do you think that maybe the lawyer was like in on it as well? Or is that a bit too far-fetched? Obviously, you get like duty solicitors and they're in the police station all day, every day type of thing, So did you know this solicitor? Did you get like advice off him for like a family friend? This is a good solicitor? Or was this just a random solicitor who was in? Well,
this was a random solicitor, you know what I mean? I knew him briefly because I was arrested for an incident of a flower pot, which is quite ironic, you know what I mean? I was drunk one night with my mate, and we were coming home by Kyra Lane, and we were kicking a flower pot about, and a police officer come round in the car and tried to say we stole it. So I was in the magistrate's court for that, and that's how I got to know this solicitor, and that's why I used him, because he got me a not guilty. Of course I was not guilty, you know what I mean? Now, we were foolish kicking it around, but we didn't steal it, you know what I mean? And it was ridiculous, but that was the start of things to come. So I used him the second time, but he never challenged the police on any of the evidence, any of the witness evidence, on the outside cell confession. And when I was remanded in custody, what I did find out was my solicitor knew that this copper had a history of making up confessions outside the cells in other cases, but he refused to mention it in court. that worried me. That did. That started alarm bells ringing for me. And I can remember my first day, November the 10th. We were remanded in custody and charged with the murder of Phillip Saunders. I was just absolutely devastated. I just couldn't believe this was happening. These things don't happen. But I had to face reality that these things were happening. I used to believe in the police before all this happened. I will say that. You know what I mean? I know my mates used to say to me, "Oh, they're trying to stitch me up for this," and I was, "Oh, there's no smoke without fire, surely."
Okay, then. So could you give us a brief background of who Ellis Shearwood was, who you was, and who Darryl was, and what were you up to that night?
Well, Ellis Shearwood is Ellis Shearwood and Darren Hall were both my co-accused. I went down my sister-in-law's house that night, and I met Darren Hall down there, and there was some talk about us going out to call for a friend to steal a car, because I couldn't steal a car. I didn't know how to drive. Ellis didn't, but he knew somebody by the name of Richard who did. Now, Darren Hall was just making a nuisance of himself, and he come down the house with Mandy's, I think it was her boyfriend, or somebody who fancied Mandy. So, he'd left earlier in the day, and Darren Hall was down the house, and we were thinking, there's something all right with this guy. We got to get rid of him, I called him Bungalow because I didn't think he had fuck all upstairs or downstairs. It's as simple as that. Because you could tell there was something wrong with him. He was giving it the big I am. I've done this, I've done that. And we thought, oh.
So you didn't even know him?
No, I never knew him. If I never went down my sister-in-law's house that night, where Ellis lived and my sister-in-law was, I would never have met him. No, I've never met him before that night, the 1st of November. No. It was just by accident that I went down there, by coincidence, and he was there. But, I remember going in the kitchen going, who is this guy? Do you know what I mean? There's something not right with him. He's a numpty. Do you know what I mean? He's not a full shilling. I was only 19. I wasn't a psychiatrist, but I knew there was something wrong with him. Do you know what I mean? And everybody else knew there was something wrong with him. So, we walked 3 miles that night up to Richard Yates's house, and we had an alibi witness. Sylvia Yates. Now, she wasn't called at a trial, but the simple fact is she was told by the police she wasn't needed. Where was my solicitors? Where was Darren Hall's solicitor and Ellis Shearwood's solicitor? We could prove that we were 3 miles away when the murder happened. We could not run 3 miles in 5 minutes. Even fucking Roger Bannister couldn't do that. Do you know what I mean? 4-minute mile, for instance. Yeah. So, that shows you that we couldn't have done it. And we had an alibi. There was only one person who was seen running away from the murder scene on the night in question. And nothing added up at all.
For the people who don't know this case, can you explain to us in detail what happened to Phillip Saunders?
Well, sadly, Phillip Saunders was robbed of his shop's takings, according to the police, and battered about the head with a shovel and hit 5 times. He was attacked outside his home on the 12th of October, and he died 5 days later in hospital. And I want to say this. I did see the photographs of the injuries which he sustained, which is etched in my memory, if you like, because I was so shocked, and the police were saying, "This is what you did. This is what you did. You're going down for this." So you can imagine, I couldn't eat for 2 weeks because I was so shocked and horrified by what they were accusing me of. And when I seen those photographs,
was it a mess? Was it?
It was awful. It was awful. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, and how can I put it? All murders are bad, you know what I mean? I don't want to class one against another, but this was brutal,
Do you think this was a robbery gone wrong, or do you think this was more intention from if you was looking at them photos just off the wind?
I think whoever done it must have known Phillip Saunders and knew his whereabouts. You know what I mean? That's what I think, because I found out after my research years later, he was attacked about 20 times between 1983 and 1987, and there was numerous incidents reported to the police, but were never disclosed to our defence. He was defending
himself, was it?
Yeah.
Must have had a bit of money and...
Yes, he did. By all accounts, he used to, take his shop's takings home in the van, and somebody must have been watching him, And I think they killed him for one reason, because he could have identified them. If he would have lived, none of this would have happened to me, Ellis or Darren Hall. That he would have been able to, I really believe he would have been able to identify the person who was responsible.
So, what happened next then? So, you've been arrested. Sorry, before we go on, was Darryl with you when you were walking in Canton? Was it the three of you, or was it just you and Ellis?
No, the three of us ended up walking up to Fairwater Grove.
Right, okay, sorry.
And he went to his friend's house in Fairwater, and then me and Ellis went on to our friend's house, about 5 minutes away, So we did get rid of Darren Hall. And the next time I saw him was when we were in the police station, when he was saying Ellis Shearwood and Michael O'Brien killed Phillip Saunders. Nah, it wasn't him, it was me. I done it on my own. And he did give 14 different confessions. Implicating you 1 minute. Your name's Tony with ginger hair. Where did that guy come from? Wow. You know what I mean?
That was in there as well, was it?
Yeah, that was in the statements as well, yes.
Was every statement incriminating himself and others? Or was there ever a statement where it was like, I don't know what you're on about?
No, there was some statements at the beginning when he said he didn't do it and he tried to retract everything. But I mean...
Familiar story,
Well, our case mirrors the Cardiff 3 case and the Darvell brothers, where they got a vulnerable suspect to confess and built the case around those particular people by using, ex-cons or people who were in serious trouble with the police, because the 5 witnesses in our case were in serious trouble with the police.
Really?
Yeah, one of them was told that if he ever come before the judge again, he would get a life sentence, and that was to do with the shotgun and a robbery. And yet, when he got to court, he was released from prison. Every single one of these witnesses, there wasn't one credible witness. And bear in mind as well, this man was brutally attacked and there was no forensic evidence to link us with the crime. Now, we called in an expert called John Hayward many years ago in the BBC Week In, Week Out programme, and he said, if any of us would have been there, Darren, Ellis or me, there would have been a splatter in the blood everywhere and we would have been covered. Yet 15 to 30 minutes later, from the murder scene, we could prove that 1, we had an alibi, 2, that we didn't have no money bag, 3, I wasn't able to run because I had bad legs, and so did Darren Hall. So we couldn't run anyway, because we got disabilities, and there's no forensic evidence. It's just unreal.
Was you caught on the night? Sorry.
No, we got arrested near enough 3 weeks after Phillip Saunders was attacked.
And did you hear about this in the news then? Was this like common knowledge? Someone's been murdered?
Yes, there was common knowledge, yes, because the first thing we thought of, oh shit, we were out on a night in question stealing cars.
So did it ever sink into your head that you could be tied into this in somehow?
Yes, there was. We lied about the route we took on the night in question, to do with the car. We sort of diverted away from the scene because we knew we stole the car, But at that particular time, we were nowhere near the scene at 11:25 when the guy was attacked. But we were in the vicinity about half an hour before, or right on the outskirts of it.
Yeah.
So so we did lie to the police at the beginning.
Because that might look bad if you.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to be thinking. I think the maddest thing is though the fact that they let you go like for them couple of days and then brought you back and said there was significant evidence. Like if someone's written a confession of that, why would they let you go?
Well, unbeknown to me at the time, you know what I mean, which I'll talk about a bit later, Darren Hall had confessed to a crime he hadn't done before, but it wasn't disclosed to us at that time. Now, that come about later on, which, I'll talk about later down the line, because otherwise it's going to, it's not going to fit in with what we're saying now. But they knew that Darren Hall's confession, and make no mistake about it, they knew it was false. Because if you're admitting to something you haven't, if you're admitting to something you've done, how was it he didn't know what the murder weapon was? He never once mentioned the murder weapon. He said he hit him with a house brick, he hit him with sticks and stones, then he said he was the lookout, then we done it, then I done it, then Ellis done it, then none of us done it, then Tony done it, there's the one with the ginger hair. You could clearly see that this man was an unwell person, and, he should have been afforded the protection of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. And yet, when it went to the Court of Appeal, there was 115 breaches of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. Astonishing. That's not an accident. No. That was deliberate.
How long was you interrogated for then, for him to write that many confessions?
Well, between the 1st and the 3rd of November, from what I can gather, he had made a number of confessions and incriminating remarks about different people, including himself and Ellis. and they still released us. And then when we got arrested on November the 10th, the second time, they questioned him again all day, and he must have made numerous other confessions. And his last confession was, Ellis Shearwood done it. He was the lookout, and I helped him to kill Phillip Saunders. That was his last statement, and that's what got us charged, basically. And obviously, the police officer alleging he overheard us outside the cells confessing to a crime that we didn't do. You know what I mean? He basically said that we did confess to it, which we contested. But at the time of the trial, we didn't know that he had a history of making up these confessions either, which will come out a bit later in the programme.
Yo, you alright? Nah, Cole, bro. Not gonna lie, I'm a bit itchy.
What do you mean?
Bro, I've been using that Bic razor, man. I think I've got an ingrowing hair from it.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
What should I do?
This is for you and the fans' sake. You need to go cop up a manscape. Comfy to toss like a pancake, cause now I don't look like a damn ape. I used to be hairy, my family are Greek, but now I am trimmed and my bits are on fleek. Now I get nookie when under the sheets, and the back of my balls don't chafe on my cheeks. I recklessly trim in the dark, the ceramic blades are not sharp. I dangerously shaving the night with the help of my LED lights. I feel like a 1 in a million, wetting up girls like amphibians. I am not into Brazilians, thank you manscape, you are brilliant. And that's it, bruv, trust me.
Yeah.
Like, life-changing. I used to always say I'm a shower, not a grower, but now thanks to the mower, my ting hangs lower.
Yeah, Cole, what about the ball sweat, man?
What do you mean?
What about the sweat, bro?
Sweaty sacks are not deserved, so I'm getting them slapped with crop preserve. And once you're down there checking for bumps, make sure you're checking for lumps. Pebble dash when I trim my moustache, mow the lawn, then I'm gone in a flash. Used to shave, then I show in a rash, but my Bic's gone straight in the trash.
Nice one, Cole. You've really put me on there, bro.
Not a problem, bro, but like I said, for you and the fans' sake, if you want to check out your manscape, then hit the discount code, all capital letters, Stay Central. That's all bold writing, yeah? Like my balls, Stay Central. You need to cop up a manscape. That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shocking. So you go to court, were you Cardiff Crown, was it? Or
Cardiff Crown Court. I'll tell you what it was now. It was June the 27th. We went on trial.
Picture for me.
God, it was scary. It was frightening. I can remember holding on to the bars and I'm saying to my lawyers, innocent people don't go to prison, do they? They said, well, if he believes Darren Hall's confession, you're going down. And that's what he was telling me. I was saying, but they can't believe him. He's made too many confessions. He couldn't have done it. He was with us. Why is he doing this? And we couldn't work it out. You know, my head was mashed. And just before I went to trial, my wife gave birth to my daughter. And just before, about a week before we were going to trial, my daughter died of a cot death. So I had to go to the funeral in handcuffs, as you can imagine. It was traumatic. And her name was Kylie, you know. It was really, I was in no fit state for trial, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? After that, no fit state. But I had to soldier on, and I did try to defend myself when I went to court. But once the wheels of motion start, I mean, you're found guilty even before you say a word. That's what I found. I think that, you know, with the Cardiff 3, the Guildford 4, and all the other cases, Darvell brothers, as soon as you're in that dock, the jury look at it, well, there's no smoke without fire. But the extraordinary thing in our case was, even though Darren Hall pleaded guilty to manslaughter and said he was involved, 2 of the jury found him not guilty. It was a 10-2. And that came in on the 20th of July, 1988. I'll never forget that, because the judge made comments like, you've had every opportunity, Mr. O'Brien, through your barristers and your solicitors to put your case. And I think you've been rightly found guilty. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? And he said, there's only one sentence I can give you, and that's one for life. And my legs did buckle. I can remember that. And I held onto the railings. And I said to my father, Dad, as long as you know I never done it, that's all what matters. And there was tears streaming down my eyes. I was a mess. I looked at the jury and said, you've got it so wrong. And they couldn't even look at me, you know? And we were taken down. I remember going back to Cardiff prison for a couple of weeks. My wife walked out on me, decided to walk out on me. She couldn't cope with it no more. She had a brother inside, a husband inside. We'd just lost our daughter. She was only 18, to be fair to her. You know what I mean? I don't know what was going through her head. She must have been in a terrible state of self. I've been harsh over the years, you know, regarding her, because I thought she should have stood by me and things like that. But looking back now on reflection and being a bit more mature than what I was when I first come out, I got a lot of sympathy for her because it wasn't her fault. She was just as much as a victim as what we were. So, you know, yeah, that was really difficult. That was really difficult because I loved the woman. I really loved her. You know what I mean? She was a mother of my children, my 2 children. I had a son called Kyle as well when I went in. And then when we lost Kylie.
Kyle and Kylie.
Yeah. I should be so lucky. But there we go. You know? But, you know, it was one of those things that I had to cope with when I was in prison. And it took a toll on me. You know what I mean? I was suicidal. I wanted to kill myself. Because I didn't think I had nothing to live for anymore. And that was my lowest ebb.
Did you see Darryl or Ellis, were they in Cardiff as well when you first got sentenced, or were you?
We were all in Cardiff prison, you know, and when my daughter died, I can remember saying to Dad, no, this is your fault, this is as well. Because you told lies and you couldn't tell the truth. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, like, I know it's probably not easier said than done, but if us 4 now left here and someone got shot down the road and, you know, we get locked up and then they say Michael O'Brien said you've killed him, like, I would be fucking wanting to strangle you and say, well, like, I'd try my best to like, was it that frustration with Darryl, or like, was it just like, did you know he had something wrong with him and it was just like that?
Well, I had a lot of hatred towards him. I was so angry, you know what I mean? Because he had ruined my marriage, he'd ruined my family life, you know, but as the years went on and I started studying, which I'll get into a bit later, you'll find I understood people like him and I forgave him for what he did, because if the police hadn't have put the pressure on him and did what they did to him in the police station, because I know how I was treated and I think he was treated worse than me, you got to look at the root cause.
Kind of like a Stephen Miller to John Ackley.
Yeah.
Where you was probably the John and he was the Stephen.
Absolutely. It's the same as the Darvell brothers, and one of them confessed in that case as well. You've got to look at the Birmingham Six. You've got to have a look. They were tortured. The Birmingham Six were. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was because the level of I am, like, you know, portrayed as a terrorist and stuff. It's next level, isn't it?
It is a next level, but the fact is, people have confessed in. Judith Ward confessed. She was an IRA case as well. The Guildford Four, you know what I mean? There's many people who've confessed. And you've got to look at the root causes why they confessed. And that's what I was more interested in. And once I understood the psychology behind all that, I knew he was an unwell man. How could I hit this guy when he was like had the mind of a child? I would be a bully. That's what I felt like. So I refrained from trying to hit him. I refrained from calling him names. And I focused on the big picture. And the big picture was, what's gone wrong in my case? How can I put it right? I needed to study law. I needed to educate myself. I couldn't read or write when I was in prison very well. I had to do something because I was the only one out of the 3 of us who could do this.
When was the moment you decided to do that? Was you in Cardiff, or is this when you got shipped out to one of the heavier prisons?
Well, I got shipped out to a place called Long Lartin, where I was there for 7 years, you know what I mean? And I met the legendary Charlie Bronson there, you know, and other people like that, you know. And a lot of people helped me when I got to Long Lartin, you know what I mean? Some of the old-style gangsters were telling me the ropes, you know, you don't talk to the sex offenders, you don't do this, you don't do that. This is the protocol, like on the streets, if you like, you know, the code of conduct, you know. It's the same in prisons, and there's a hierarchy in prisons as well. You know, the ones who are armed robbers, you know, the tonks, they're the bee's knees, you know what I mean? You look up to them, like, sort of thing. And then you've got the ones, then the grasses and the sex offenders where you don't talk to. And if you do, there's consequences. Simple as that. So, you know, I got to be fair. The Rooney brothers from Liverpool really helped me, I know, and they've seen I was only a young kid, and they put me on the right roads, you know what I mean? And what I found when I got into Long Lartin, I couldn't cope with the wrongful imprisonment. I couldn't. I didn't want to live. I just couldn't cope. So somebody offered me some cocaine and some cannabis. Next minute you know, for a full year, I'm off my face. That's the only way I could blot out everything which happened to me. I was drinking prison hooch, made my own prison hooch and stuff like that. I was taking tablets off the doctors to survive. You know what I mean? Because I just had to get through that day. I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't even fight. So between 89 and 1990, I was just a whole mess. And then one day, I collapsed. And I lost 8 hours in the prison cell. I thought it was 1 o'clock. And it was 8 o'clock in the night. And I went to go back to work. And I said to the officers, can you take me back to work? Like, you know what I mean? They said, Mike, you've been asleep for 8 hours. I said, what are you talking about? He said, it's 8 o'clock. I said, no, it's only about 1 o'clock. I went upstairs, I sat on the bed and I cried my eyes out like a baby. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And I realised I was losing my mind. That was the turning point for me. And a guy called Paddy Hill and the Carl Bridgewater boys who were wrongly convicted of the Carl Bridgewater, Vincent Hickey, they came up to me and said, you got to sort yourself out. And they were telling me what I needed to do. I needed to write to people, to journalists and everybody like that. So I thought, okay, I better get off the drugs first, mind, you know, like one thing at a time, you know. But I went to see the psychologist, and I remember her name was Fiona. She was fantastic in Long Latin. She was fantastic. She helped me get clear of all the drugs and everything. I like my weed. You know what I mean? I did like a spliff. You know what I mean? That was the only thing I got rid of everything else, all the cocaine and the acid tablets I used to take on the weekend and stuff like that.
In prison?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. You know, I got rid of the speed and everything, you know, pink champagne, you name it. I've done it. The only thing I never touched was the heroin, you know what I mean?
Was Long Latin, is it the same as, you know, your standard dispersal prisons, you know, Cardiff, Birmingham? Are they big landings, big wings, or do they, like, set out different, being a lifer, you know, because I always imagine, like, the double cat A's, the you know, the Franklins, the Long Latins is more like a more relaxed. It don't look like a prison. Is that not true? Or
well, no, you know you're in prison. There's no doubt about it. But I think the regime was a bit more relaxed and say like you wasn't banged up 23 hours a day like you would be in a local prison.
How many people would you have on a wing?
That's a good question. About 60.
Oh, so yeah, so they're pretty small compared to F-wing in Cardiff, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. There wasn't as many prisoners, you know, like that. But there was 3 tiers. Do you know what I mean? There was like, if you're on D-wing, there's D-wing and ground floor.
D1, D2,
D3. Yeah, basically. You know what I mean? So there's like, say, about 180 on the spurs, as we used to call them. You know, but I was lucky in the sense like I met other innocent people when I was in prison who helped to guide me and get me off the drugs, and Fiona was amazing. And then one day I woke up and God, I was so angry. Fuck me, was I so angry. I thought, how dare you do this to me and my family? I thought, right, I'm going to start learning to write. So I went on English classes, passed level 1, 2 and 3 on English. You know, it took me a year, but I done it. Maths, City and Guilds, I started like that. And next minute you know, I'm writing to everybody, every journalist you can think of. I was protesting. I went on hunger strikes with other inmates.
I've seen a documentary where you're doing that, the hunger strike.
Yeah, we went on hunger strike, you know what I mean, for 14 days at a time, like, you know, and it wasn't that we wanted to kill ourselves. We just wanted to highlight our cases.
Attention.
And it did that. Radio 4, I can remember Radio 4 saying, prisoners who are refusing their Christmas meals tonight in Long Latin prison and Gartree and Bristol and all the other prisons. We coordinated the first hunger strike ever
from different prisons.
From different prisons. It's never been done before. And we were like, I walked into the front, into this one room where the telly was, and I see my mother being interviewed on telly on ITV. So I'm like, wow, it worked. You know, so we drew the attention. And then people started making documentaries and everything. The BBC got involved, and I think the biggest thing for us was in '96. Really, after we had done, you know, a fair whack, that all the witnesses who alleged that we confessed to them and seen us in town spending money admitted on national television that they framed us, that they lied in court. Darren Hall then had an exclusive interview.
I've seen, is that when he goes, they did not kill?
Yes.
No way.
I nearly fell on the floor when I seen that.
Well, because it's just...
It was absolutely crazy. I was like, why couldn't you have said that 10 years ago? Why 11 years now? But, as I said, because I had an understanding of him and there was 2 expert reports on him, like psychological reports, I seen Olive Turnstill's report and it basically said that he was one of these persons who's a Walter Mitty character and he was prone to confessing to things he hadn't done. Now, I was shocked at that, but I got a bigger shock when my solicitor said, you know, Darren Ollis confessed to a crime he didn't do before as well. And the police knew about it and didn't disclose it.
That's disgusting.
They knew.
But ain't the courts allowed to be entitled to this and the jury? Or are they not do the police like withhold this type of information?
They withheld it all.
Fucking mad, isn't it?
It gets worse than that. The police officer who made up the confession outside the cells had done it in about 7 other previous cases.
Is that the officer there's an officer I seen on a documentary where he reenacted himself. He pretends to be Phillip Saunders. There was an officer who actually pretended to be Phillip Saunders in a reenactment, and he was like lying on, and he was like, "There's no way we're going to get these killers." Have you seen that? I
have seen that. No, he was involved in the Darvell brothers case and my case, but he wasn't the main officer. Inspector Stuart Lewis, which is widely publicised in my book, The Dossier, it's all in there. All the evidence is in there about what he done. They even tried to frame Lord Ellis Thomas, who was an MP in 1982 for the Welsh holiday home bombings. Now, it was the same police officer who was outside the cells. Again, another confession. Anthony Yellen case, where, again...
Yeah, and the Kelleher, innit?
Kelleher,
My family, John, from Cardiff.
Yes. I mean, unbelievable. This man had a history. And what I did, when I come out, I took the police to court over what they call evidence of similar fact. In other words, when we go to court and they look at your previous, they bring it all up, don't they? So I brought all his previous up. I said, can I use it against him, Your Honour, in my civil action against the police? And the House of Lords said, yes, of course you can, because it's a previous pattern of behaviour. Police settled out of court within, 3 weeks, because they didn't want it to go to court, because of all the evidence would have come out about this police officer. They put in a Part 36 offer, and it stops you from going to court, and then you don't get justice. Because to me, it wasn't about the money. The money's secondary. I wanted this police officer in prison. Yeah, I wanted him in prison.
Did anything happen to those officers?
Not one police officer. This is what the research I've done for the dossier. Not one police officer, not one solicitor, not one barrister has ever been brought to book in any of the miscarriages of justice cases in South Wales.
So in that dossier, all them in that book you've got not one person, not one player,
not one. And I'll go further than that. In the UK, only 3 police officers has ever been done for causing a miscarriage of justice. One of them was an ex-police officer who got set up by his own. Jed Cawley affair, they called it, in Manchester. And 2 police officers got 18 months for fabricating evidence in our case. And the other case was the Stephen Kisco case, which is very, very sad. He died not long after he come out, and his mother did as well. And he got...
Sorry, who's that?
Stephen Kisco. He got accused of a rape he didn't do. And they had DNA evidence there, and they never disclosed it. And it wasn't his, because he couldn't produce semen. So they knew all along he was innocent, and he done 16 years, this man did. And a police officer went to prison for that case, but that is it. That's all the research I've done.
There's a lot of rotten wood in. I think now is a new era, in a new wave. But South Wales police, Wales police, you could say,
we need a judicial inquiry into all these cases. This is what I'm calling for now. You know what I mean? I'm working with my MP. I have had an apology off South Wales Police, man.
You have shown me. We will put it up on the screen. People to see.
Yeah, I haven't. They've acknowledged I'm a victim of a miscarriage of justice and everything like that, which is, I thought was a brave, considering. I've been fighting for 34 years together.
How long did that come? How long did it take to get that apology? 34
years.
So it weren't even as soon as you got not pardoned, but as soon as you got released, it weren't sorry. It's come a while.
It did take him a while, but when this new chief constable come in, Matt Dukes, I got to be fair.
Is this the one who's in now?
No, this is the one before him. So my apologies for that. he took a different approach because he investigated my case, and he believed that anyone who'd done wrong, he wanted to get him done. And I thought, well, he's saying the right things. Let's meet him and see what he's got to say. Well, I produced quite a bit of evidence to the CPS, and it was the CPS who refused not to charge anybody. So I can't blame South Wales Police for that. I think I got to be fair where fair is due. He done what he could.
Yeah.
I got an expert report, which is in the dossier, which proves the confession outside the cells is false by a guy called Professor Michael Hoey from Liverpool University. Your fingerprints is as unique as your speech pattern. So why is there only one speech pattern and not two then? Because if me and you were supposed to have a conversation, there'd be two speech patterns. Yeah, but according to this expert, there's only one.
Not seeing your children or at a tight legal spot, Neil McAvoy Law can help. We don't give legal advice, but we know good people who do. So if you want somebody on your side, giving it 100%, get in touch. Quote the Central Podcast for discount, and we will be on your side. Diolch yn fawr.
No. It's different, isn't it?
Well, he proved it, and that's why the police settled out of court after that. After we won the evidence similar fact argument, and obviously when that report was done by Professor Hoey, they realised they were in trouble. But what annoys me more than anything is they can commit whatever criminal offences they can, the elite, the police, or whoever, barristers, and they go, right, there's money into court now, leave me alone.
That's exactly what I was saying. They think they can do their time, or if they get out and they are innocent, we'll pay them. That's it, done. There's no consequences for them. There's no justice being served on their behalf. They just think they can go to the government, pay them out that way. No money comes out of our pocket. We've got a case solved for 10, 15 years. Our pressure's off. But when they get that comeback, it's not even like they're having a proper comeback.
But what about
cash.
What about deceiving the victim's family? You know what I mean? For all these years, you know what I mean? I think let's talk about the victim's family. You know what I mean? I am gutted that they thought for 1 minute that I'd done this in the beginning, because they must have thought the right people were behind bars. And if I was in this situation, I probably would have felt the same.
You put trust in your police, don't you?
Absolutely. You know what I mean? But the fact remains, to this day, in most of the cases in the dossier, these people are still at large who've committed these offences.
Well, this is the question I want to ask you. Do you have any idea do you have any inkling of who the killer was? And are they still about?
I've got an inkling in the sense, like, I know a number one suspect who was seen harassing Phillip Saunders a few days before he died, and he would certainly be my number one suspect. I can't put hand on heart and say that he done this. You know what I mean? I think that would be unfair.
Did you do any sort of research yourself, though, while she was trying to, get your freedom? You must have been doing some sort of, investigating yourself, surely.
Well, there was a number of witnesses who come forward and said it was one person, and he was very distinctive because he had tattoos on his head, a spider's web, and, this person is well known to the police, got a, violent record, but that, again, we have to be careful because we can't actually say that he done it because we don't know, but he was harassing Phillip Saunders a few days before he died.
Still alive?
Still alive. And I have mentioned him in my book, The Death of Justice. You know what I mean? I haven't beaten on the bush.
Can you say his name on you?
Yeah, his name's Martin Cleaver. I believe he was the number one suspect at the time.
And where's he from?
He's from Ely.
Okay. Have you ever had words with him, exchanged words, obviously writing his book? What does he think?
Well, I bumped into him on the Cowbridge Road in Ely, and he said, you can't prove nothing. So I don't know whether he was doing it for bravado.
Yeah, that sounds like quite...
I don't know whether he was doing it for bravado or whether he was doing it because he was generally guilty. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but he certainly got in my face saying you can't prove nothing. And I just, reasserted my suspicions that maybe he knew more than what he knew. So, but I can't really say for 100%.
No,
you know what I mean?
No.
I think we've got to be very careful here. I don't want to...
Of course. No, I understand, but, you've got him in your book, and
Yes.
What? Let's go back a bit then to what was your time like in Long Lartin? If you've got any experiences of because when you moved, you were moved on, wasn't you? Because of trying to get the information out there, trying to get free. I'm sure like they tried banning journalists and stuff and they moved you away. They made it hard for you, didn't they?
Yes.
Have you got any stories for us of your time in prison?
Oh yeah, I got a number of stories, before and after prison. Like, when I was in Long Lartin and I was studying law, I managed to get a TV documentary started to be made by the BBC, the Week In, Week Out team. Karen Voicey and Phil Parry was involved. And they come up to see me, and all of a sudden, they stopped. The prison officers stopped them from coming in, saying, "You got to sign this disclaimer to say you won't talk about Mr. O'Brien's case." And I said, "Well, that defeats the object. We're journalists. We're trying to clear their names. There was no legal aid available, so it was down to journalists to help me. You know what I mean? That was the only option I had. So, in a nutshell, they banned the journalists from seeing me. So I took a judicial review against the number one governor of Long Lartin, Mr. Mullins. I won't forget his name in a hurry. And the Home Secretary at the time was Michael Howard. So I took that to the High Court, and they said I did have a right to have access to journalists, and they should be, I can be interviewed. So I thought, that's great. But then there was a change of government. The Labour government got in, because I was under the Tory government, but the Labour government got in, and Jack Straw appealed against it. Sadly, he won in the appeal court. They said, no, Mr. O'Brien's got no rights. He loses all his civil liberties when he's in prison. So I thought, okay, we'll go to the House of Lords. So I took it to the House of Lords. And I was out on bail at the time. And I was in the pub having a drink when the news come through that 5 law lords had ruled in my favour, and I made a historic legal ruling that journalists should be allowed to visit prisoners. And although I was already out, it was for the boys which were left behind. Those are the innocent people. I could have walked away. I didn't have to. I was talking to the journalist anyway. I was free. But I wasn't going to leave it because I knew I was right. So, yes. But for my troubles, when I was in prison, I was shipped 300 miles away from my family when I ended up in Franklin Prison, in Newcastle, all because I dared to challenge the system.
What was Franklin like?
That was another prison and a half. That was like Long Lartin. There was a lot of stabbings there. There was a couple of killings there. The racism is what I noticed from the prison officers. It was really bad.
Yeah.
It was really bad, yes. A friend of mine, Barrington Halstead, he was wrongly convicted of cocaine. You know what I mean? He was dealing
What
cannabis.
do you mean wrongly convicted? Because,
he said to me he was set up by the police, and what I seen.
Before I go on though, Mike, do you think because you was innocent, do you think maybe you might have seen yourself thinking everyone was innocent, whoever, because everyone, you hear that, everyone's innocent in prison, they all say that. Do you ever feel some sort of soft spot for some of these people?
No. I always went on evidence.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I always wanted to see the depositions and everything
Fair
before, you know what I mean? Because there was people who tried to pull the wool over my eyes. I'll give you an example. You might remember Gabrielle, the singer.
Yeah.
Right. Well, her boyfriend got done for murder. I was in prison with him.
Okay.
He tried to convince me that he was innocent. When I looked at the depositions and all that, he was banged to rights. So I told him straight, you know what I mean? Do your 30 years, mate. You know what I mean? Crack on. You know what I mean? Because that's what he got. And he deserved everything he got. He chopped somebody's head off. And, he was trying to tell me he was innocent. I'm like, wow. And there were people like this who try and pull the wool over your eyes. But I wasn't no fool. You know what I mean? I was taught by the best. The Birmingham 6, the Guildford 4. These are the people I used to hang around with. These are the ones who helped me. You know what I mean? The solicitors I bothered was like Gareth Pierce, who's one of the most renowned solicitors this country has ever seen. She's overturned 42 convictions, wrongful convictions. That's amazing. So these are the people I got advice from and everything, and bothered with. So my gut instinct wasn't wrong. You know what I mean? And yeah, of course people, some people are going to tell you they're innocent and, because they can't cope with what has happened. But yeah, that was a fact.
You got paid out £1 million. Do you think you should have had more? Are you happy with your payment?
Well, it wasn't really about the money, really. Obviously, it's nice to be able to pay the bills and stuff like that. I'm not going to say that it didn't. But there was a final insult to my compensation claim where they deducted £37,500 out of my for my food and water whilst I was in prison.
That's
it was called the bed and board case.
That's nonsense.
It hit the front page of the Echo. It made the Daily Mirror, even the Sun newspaper, which I wouldn't want my ass on, to be honest with you, because I don't like that newspaper. They never do anything. And they even phoned me up feeling sympathy for me. And I was like, bloody hell, the Sun newspaper, wow.
Wow.
You know
that's
what I mean? Yeah, that's
wow.
It was just amazing. Like, for the Sun newspaper, all right, it wasn't a big article, but it was enough to say,
we understand.
Yeah, it was just...
It's like...
it was just
that's
unbelievable.
fucking crazy. I know people who have been to prison, like mates when I've been in there, and they've got their dates wrong. They've done like an extra week or extra 4 days, and they get paid like £100. I don't know what the exact figure is, but they get paid for the extra days they're in there because they shouldn't be. So the fact that you got charged for it is just fucking... They just thought, well, we got to get something off this time.
I'm not the only one, mind. They do it to everybody now. The Birmingham Six was, Paddy Hill got charged £52,000 out of his compensation.
In the grand scheme of things, you think, fucking have it. But then when you probably got no money left, you're like, fuck it, I could do with that 37 grand now.
Well, I wrote to the Home Office and said, you're going to charge me for my water rates as well, or you're going to charge me for my council tax as well. You know what I mean? I said, you're taking the piss.
Yeah, but don't you... No, but... Right, if it's about the food and the TV, is it about all that? Like,
yes, the food, water.
Yeah, but they take that out of your canteen when you work anyway. When you work in prison, they deduct like £3 off your wages anyway, don't they?
Well, they didn't in our day, like, you know what I mean? But, God, to charge somebody... I put up the status this morning, about the bed and board case on Twitter. And I've had over 100, between 100 and 150 likes. And people from all around the world going, I can't believe they do this in Britain. I said, well, if you can't believe it, you just imagine if you got deducted it out of your money then, because it was true. It actually happened.
Fuck, No, listen, we ain't got loads of time, and I want to get into these. Like, so I got a couple of questions, but have you been able to fulfill your dreams since getting out? How are you now, like?
I'm not too bad, you know what I mean? I do suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm still seeing a psychiatrist after all these years, and I'm on medication. You know what I mean? I have got issues. I'm not going to say I haven't. I got other health issues because I got sleep apnea and things like that. But I'm a survivor, you know what I mean? I don't dwell on what's happened in the sense like, I don't do the poor me syndrome, you know what I mean? I like to go out there and help the other innocent people. This is why I write all my books for. To help other people. I go around the country speaking at various events to inspire people. Because this is what it's about. It's about making a difference and leaving your mark. It's not about my case anymore. It's about those left behind. I mean, there's a couple of stories which have come out in the newspaper. Michael Stone, I don't know if you've seen that in the paper this week, where somebody confessed to the actual murder. Levi Belfield has confessed to it. Now, I was one of the first ones to say about Michael Stone was innocent. And now it looks like it's bearing fruit. And watch that case, because that's going to get overturned. I really do believe. Yeah. And Jeremy Bamber's another one I support. And I've been involved in some high-profile cases. The Barry George case. Remember the Jill Dando case? Yeah. You know what I mean? Again, he was like my co-accused, Darren Hall, Mind of a Child. Yeah, I done it. I'm a schizophrenic.
Cardiff
murders as well. I mean, Di Morris is definitely innocent. What I find astonishing with South Wales Police is they said they got DNA evidence to link him to the sock. If that was indeed the case, why not release a report to his solicitors and his family? And the reason why they're not, because there's something in that report which is not right. You can't go, oh, well, we think you're guilty, but we're not going to give you the evidence to show it to you.
Yeah,
which is what they've done. No, you know what I mean? And I wrote about Di Morris's case in the dossier, as well as another 14 other cases, including my own, with new evidence. So
you've had a bit of a hard time as well, haven't you? Like, you get like a lot of people. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but you've had a few people who have given you a hard time. Can you shed some light on that, and how is that to cope with?
It's very difficult when you get a troll for the last 3 years following you on Twitter and going through your Facebook pages, calling you a killer, a murderer. You know what I mean? I'm only human. You know what I mean? Of course, it's going to affect me. It's been really difficult. You know what I mean? It's been really difficult because Suffolk police, who should be arresting this woman for harassment, as well as there being defamation of character, there's criminal offences which have been committed, you know, and there seems to be a lack of will on their part to arrest anyone who gives me grief because of the work I do.
I think it's wrong as well for the family of Phillip Saunders. She's nothing to do with them. Like leave things alone. Like, you know, like it's not even like it's them who are shouting from the rooftop should have murdered. It's someone who's totally unrelated, isn't it?
Yeah, well, what happened was, you know, I used to work for the Innocence Project. You know what I mean? There's Innocence Project in Cardiff, and I support them fully. And what happened was, her husband claimed he was innocent, and we found out later on that he wasn't telling the truth. And it transpired that he confessed to the crime, and he told his wife. And since then, she's been off the rails, and everybody who's cleared their name, she thinks is guilty. She goes under...
Bitter.
Yeah, very, very bitter. You know what I mean? She goes under the name Hidden Injustice, and the things she said about me this week with photographs.
Yeah.
I know I've contacted the police very reluctantly because, you know, that's not my forte. I don't like going to the police as a rule, but I've been advised by my family. Otherwise, I'd probably end up doing something stupid. You know what I mean? Because I do want to get her. You know what I mean? And I shouldn't feel like this.
No,
because
of course.
I got a 10-year-old son. I don't want him seeing this kind of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
and, you know, being called a killer, a brutal murderer, I should be under mapper.
Do you need a work uniform? Want to start a clothing brand? Or maybe you have a football kit that needs a logo printed? Well, if I was you, I'd get in touch with the Re-Inspire Printing Company down Treforest Industrial Estate for the finest printing and embroidery in Wales. I use them for my custom-made mankini, but you could use them for t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and many, many other things.
And MAPPA stands
I
for...
know MAPPA, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I should
Do
be...
you want to say what it stands for?
Well, I don't know the full meaning of MAPPA. I've got to be honest, I've only just found out this week.
It's like tag, innit, really, but like on a different level, like, you know.
Well, I should be
You get
watched
MAPPA
by the
4,
police.
MAPPA 3, MAPPA 2.
Yeah, I should be watched by the police because I'm a dangerous person.
Ah, fucking hell.
I mean, and this woman has hounded not just me, the Innocence Project, and all my friends. Martin Shipton of The Echo, she's harassed and accused him of writing biased articles about me. Dennis Eady, Claire McGawley, you know, from the Innocence Project in Sheffield. I mean, it's just everybody who's connected to me has been having grief from this woman. And yet, all I've said to the police is, why haven't you done your job? Why haven't you arrested her?
Again, you know, it's mad, isn't it?
Well, this is the 23rd criminal offence which has been committed against me. And so far, not one person has been brought to book for all the harassment I've had over the years previously as well. You know, I mean, that's documented in my book. You know, because I have had my car smashed. I've been attacked in the street. I've been attacked in a pub. People have called me murderer. You're a killer. You know, who do you think you are? You know what I mean? And you get jealous people causing you problems. I mean, I bought a Renault Clio. It was better than somebody else's car. So they went and trashed it. Yeah. And I'm like, if I had a Lamborghini, I could understand them. But I'm a very modest person. You know what I mean? I don't go flashing money around, and all that, like, you know what I mean? I'm from Ely, you know what I mean? I know what it's like not to have nothing. But then to do all the bad things, I had to move home because it was so bad. I couldn't cope with it no more, and I ended up moving to another area because otherwise, again, I would have got myself into a lot of trouble. And I don't want to be the same person I was that I was in prison because I wasn't a hard man in prison, don't get me wrong, but I'd have a go at you. If you had a go at me, I'd have a go at you, and I don't care how big you were or who you were or whatever. You know, the only person who bothered me was Charlie Bronson. That was the only, you know.
Really?
Yeah, well, I seen that man go off. And talking about Charlie, I've seen that man. There's been 16 prison officers outside when they open up the door. You know what I mean? Because he'll bowl them over like Skittles. He's not tall, but he's so strong.
He really is.
Oh yeah.
You hear stories. He's like, he ain't even had, but you know, he's obviously got some sort of fear factor amongst prisons and prison officers.
Well, there's not many people who mess with him. I can assure you of that. You know what I mean? I was in Long Lartin with him, and I like Charlie as a person. I was pleased when he got married the first time. I've mentioned it in The Death of Justice, my autobiography. And I wished him well because I'd love to see Charlie out. I'd love to see him doing well for himself. You know what I mean? I'd love to see him being given the opportunity. You know, yes, he's done some madcap things and all that, but, you know, he's not this person which is portrayed in the papers. He's the biggest and baddest and dangerous criminal. He never killed anybody. They're the facts. I know other people who've killed people. There's a guy called Fred Lowe, who's well known. He's killed people in prison. He's more dangerous than what Charlie is. I can understand them saying that about like somebody like Fred Lowe, but not about Charlie, because he never killed anybody. Yes, he's held the governors hostage. Most of it is for pranks. I can remember Charlie saying to him, they said to him, "What's your demand?" He said, "Oh, a helicopter and an ice cream, please." And I mean, we all burst out laughing, like, you know. You couldn't take Charlie serious on that. If he wanted to really take the governor hostage and hurt him, he could have. Do you know what I mean?
Have you got any encounters like with you and him?
Yeah, there was one time where the prison officers, I was only 6'6" when I went into prison. You know, inflation has caught me by the boo-boos at the moment. You know what I mean? But there we go. You know what I mean? I'm nearly 17 stone now. So there we go. You know, that's good food for you.
Wow.
You know? But I was 6'6" in Long Lartin, and the prison officers were bullying me. And he went in there and he said, "You got a problem with him, you got a problem with me." And that's when I respected Charlie, because he didn't like bullies. I got to be fair to him. He hated bullies. He also hated sex offenders as well, mind. You know what I mean? He's bashed a few of them over the years. You know, there was no ifs or buts. You know, if you were a wrong un, you were having it. And if you were stupid enough to get in his way, then more fool you. Like, you know, he was one of those.
Before I go, I just want to ask you 2 questions, and this ties. You can carry on with this one. Like, what is the craziest thing you've seen in them Cat A prisons?
I think in Long Lartin, I seen a number of people murdered. You know what I mean? Inmates on inmates.
Seen the bodies?
Yeah, I've seen them dead, yeah. I watched one guy die in front of me, Norman Manning. He was stabbed in the heart, lungs, groin. I know, I had a look, and I looked at I seen he was blood everywhere. The prison officers were quite callous. They were more interested in cleaning up the blood, you know, in the cell to move the next person in. The guy hadn't even died yet, like, you know, but we knew he was going to die.
Stabbed with what?
He was stabbed with a knife. You know what I mean?
Get a knife.
Well, you can make him.
Obviously a shank, but
yeah. You know, they improvise. You know?
Just one person killed him, or?
From what I can gather, yes. I got an idea who done it, and I think he did go to, you know, he did get another life sentence. But as I said, the guy was already doing a life sentence anyway. And once you got 2 life sentences, you got a license to kill as many people as you want. That's frightening.
Yeah. The final question I've got really is what is your opinion on South Wales Police?
Well, you know, I think things have changed from the bad old days of the 1987, but there's still a lot of lessons which they haven't learned, you know, in the sense like I found 4 cases between 1982 and 2016 of miscarriages of justices. Now, I was assured by the chief constable at the time, Matt Dukes, that the practices used to convict people like me, the Cardiff 3, the Darvell brothers, was a thing of the past. How was there 4 cases then, which caused me concern? Using inmates who were in serious trouble with the police to give false evidence against people to get convictions is not in this day and age, you know, and they're still doing it. That's very, very concerning for me. You know, I'm not saying it's happening on a grand scale of like, you know, 20, 30 miscarriages of justices, but how many do we not know about? This is the other thing, because you got to look at the mundane cases as well, because not everybody gets charged with wrongfully for murder or robbery. There might be burglaries. Do you know what I mean? You know, and things like that, other offences. And you don't hear about them. It's
only the big ones which you think, my life's hanging in the balance here, that people would probably argue with. There's other ones where a burglary, you probably didn't do it the once, but you've probably done 10 before. Oh yeah, I'm not even going to argue with it, I'm just going to do it type of thing. But
well, I can give you some statistics.
Go on, quickly fire them off.
Right. 85,000 appeals since the Guildford 4 story broke in 1989 have been cleared by the Court of Appeal. Most of them are mundane cases, and yet you don't hear about them. They're the facts. They're the Innocence Project statistics.
And what was the one? How many people in prison right now innocent? Something like that?
I would say there's at least 2,000, maybe 3,000 people who are genuinely innocent, you know, factually innocent of crimes they haven't done.
Crazy. Michael, is there anything you would like to say down that camera to the people? Anything inspiring? Anything that you've learned as a lesson in life which would help someone maybe?
Well, I think the most important thing is, you know, when something bad happens to you, you've got to take the positives out of the negatives. And that's what I've tried to do. When I lost my son, I set up a charity. When I got wrongly convicted, I educated myself. These are the things you have to do, and you can overcome them. You know, I've got problems, you know what I mean, with my health, but I'll be damned if I let it, you know, keep me down, like, you know what I mean? There's no way would I stay down on the floor. I would always rise up, and this is what I do, and everybody has got that in them. And you can overcome things, you know, overcoming injustice and loss was one of my other books I'd done with the Moving Mountains series. I worked with a psychologist, you know, to sort of like tell people you can do this, you've got this. So if you're in a bad place right now, just remember, it's not always going to be like that. And just remember, tomorrow's another day.
Michael, thank you so much for coming, mate. Honestly, I've really enjoyed this. You're a very good talker. You're a very, very good talker for someone who, you know, from the get-go, straight away, I welcomed you and you didn't even say hi. You was like, well, what it is? You just went straight and I was like, you know what? This is going to be a good one. No, do you know what? For you to not be able to read or write, you know, have them odds stacked up against you, to go to prison, to, you know, to go against, you know, the way you didn't fight on and to now carry yourself the way you do, mate. I take my hat off to you, honestly. I just want to say I'm sorry for everything you've been through, and you know I'm hoping that this story will inspire others, whether that's them being locked up for something they didn't do, or that's them feeling the type of way, you know.
Well, I'd just like to say, like, you know, if there's many youngsters out there, right, you know, you can do something with your life, you know what I mean? I wish I did at the time. You know, it took me a long time to sort myself out, you know, because of my experiences. But you've got this. You can do this. You can be anything you want to be. Just put your mind to it, because I was an old fart passing my driving test and everything 36 and, you know, going to university and everything at 37, you know, so you can do these things. But, you know, be wise and do things now while you're younger. I wish I would have.
Thank you very much, Michael, honestly.
Thank you very much.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll see you next week. Stay central.
The Central Club.